How are we doing, guys? And welcome back to TSTV. And in this video, we're going to be doing the match predictions for game week 3 in the Premier League. So let's kick off with Chelsea against Fulham. Now, typically in content creator fashion, it always seems to be the way. As soon as I published my video last night, looking at the Champions League draw reaction and a couple of transfer updates, we got the confirmation that Chelsea will sign Alejandro Garnacho. I imagine he will be paraded at the game between Chelsea and Fulham. And as I've said before, I'm not particularly big on the signing, both in terms of character, but also is he going to be the right fit profile-wise for this team? There's definitely some doubts there. He obviously has a huge potential, so there is potential for him to become a very, very good player. But I can't say I'm big on it, but it's been so obvious for a while that he is going to come to Chelsea that I've kind of accepted it by now. So it's not a big meltdown fiasco as it may have been if it had just come out of the blue. So yeah, that is the latest bit of news from Chelsea that broke literally just after I posted my video yesterday, and it won't have any impact on this game against Fulham because he won't be registered in time to play. As we know, Cole Palmer will be out for this game. Now, Cole Palmer missed the game against West Ham and obviously started quite badly for Chelsea. It was a sloppy start. West Ham go 1-0 up, and then after that, Chelsea ran riot all over a very, very poor West Ham team. But this will be a bit different, I feel. It can be a bit similar to the Palace game, I think, where Fulham will probably set up in a fairly low block and look to counter-attack us, really, using players such as Iwobi or Adama Traore or Anthony Robinson at left-back. They obviously beat Chelsea at Stamford Bridge last year, coming from 1-0 down with about 5 minutes to go and winning 2-1, and then Chelsea then returned the favour at Craven Cottage. It was a very similar game there, but Fulham are a dangerous opponent in the sense that I think they're a solid team. They've got a very good coach in Marco Silva. They've got some good players, and though they haven't invested this summer, they tend to be very well organised and they do play enterprising football as well. So Chelsea is going to be a different test with Cole Palmer out this time compared to last week. Obviously, we're away from home. There was loads of space. Fulham won't give up that space. It's going to be on the likes of Esteval, who I imagine will play, João Pedro and Pedro Neto to be able to really unlock their creativity, and Enzo Fernandez as well, perhaps box crashing like we saw for the third goal at West Ham last week. So I think it's going to be a difficult game. I'm going to go for Chelsea to win 1-0. I can see it being quite cagey, not many chances, probably not the most entertaining game, but I can see Chelsea just getting over the line. Now in the next game, Sunderland against Brentford. Both teams have won in their opening 2 games, and both have been predicted to struggle for different reasons. Now, Sunderland obviously just coming up from the Premier League after 8 years away, investing loads in their team, so it was quite hard to see how that would all gel, but they've obviously made some very astute signings and got to a great start against West Ham, winning 3-0, a dream start for the Black Cats. And Brentford as well, who have been tipped widely to get relegated, including by myself. They got a really important win at home against Aston Villa last week, which I didn't really see coming. I mean, thought Villa were very, very poor that day, but Brentford, they look solid. They've got some experienced operators in the team. I think the big question with Brentford is, do they have the quality to be able to break teams down? The goal last week against Villa came from a bit of a mistake from Martinez. Utara hit a shot straight at Martinez. It squirmed through him, and then he managed to get onto the rebound. So I still think there are doubts there about Brentford. But for both teams, I think that's a fairly solid start, even though they had difficult defeats against Burnley and Forest, respectively. I think this could be a tight, cagey game, actually. I think it'll be very physical. I think there'll be set pieces, and I think it will be quite attritional at times. And I think a point may suit both sides. So I'm going to go for Sunderland 0, Brentford 0. Now, the other 3 o'clock kickoff, Tottenham versus Bournemouth, could be an absolute cracker. Now, Xavi Simons has been confirmed that he will sign for Tottenham. It looked for all the world that Chelsea were going to go in for him all window, and it looks like Spurs have managed to get that over the line. Chelsea, for whatever reason, decided not to pursue that move, whether they're looking at other targets or whether there was something flagged in sort of the due diligence on Simons, which kind of put them off a little bit. I'm not sure, but I think Spurs have got a really, really good player there. And, you know, looking at Tottenham's transfer window, you've got Kudus coming in, Palhinha, now Simons. They may look to add another winger and a centre-back as well. So all of a sudden, it's looking very, very exciting for Tottenham. And I think Thomas Frank is a really, really good manager. So, yeah, the good times may be back at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, or as I would usually call it, White Hart Lane. But they come up against a really good Bournemouth team. They got a good result against Wolves last week. They should have won by far more. And I thought they're excellent at Anfield. Really, I thought deserved a point. I thought it was a very harsh scoreline on them, 4-2, conceding 2 goals pretty much in injury time. They've got some really good attacking players in Semenyo and Cliver and even Ilson. Again, still doubts about them at the back, but I think they will pose a real threat against Tottenham. And I can see it being a bit of a roller coaster game. It's quite a hard one to call in a way. You would probably make Tottenham favourites, or you would make Tottenham favourites. But I definitely think Bournemouth could get something here. So I'm going to go for an entertaining Tottenham 2, Bournemouth 2. Now, another big pressure game this weekend, it seems crazy to say that 3 games in, is Manchester United against Burnley. Now, I obviously talked about Manchester United yesterday in my video after their disastrous loss to Grimsby. It wasn't necessarily just the loss, but also the manner of the performance. Ruben Amorim's comments afterwards. It is very, very dark times over at Old Trafford at this moment in time, and the pressure on this game is huge. After this game, post the international break, I think their next 4 games, they've got Chelsea, City and Liverpool. So if they don't get a win here, they could really be staring down the barrel. And I think Ruben Amorim could well be on borrowed time already. And he'd be even more under pressure if they do not get 3 points here. And they're coming up against a Burnley side. We've got a great win against Sunderland last time out at home. In the first game of the season, they went to Spurs and lost 3-0, but they were very competitive for the first hour of that game, looked fairly solid and had a couple of chances themselves. But once the second goal for Tottenham went in, it kind of petered out a little bit and the game was kind of over as a contest. But I think they'll make this difficult for Manchester United. I think there'll be a lot of pressure from the home support and the watching world on Amorim and his team. But I'm going to go for Manchester United 2, Burnley 1. And the reason I say I'm not through any great evidence of I think United are a good team or I think United are about to bounce back. Historically, in the last few years, they tend to have had these sort of periods where they have this car crash result and then they play a team at home and you think, ooh, that could be a real banana skin, and they just about get over the line. So I could see maybe a Man United 2-1 win coming from 1-0 down, maybe a last-minute goal, and then all of a sudden it papers over the cracks again. So yeah, Man United 2, Burnley 1. Wolves against Everton. Now, again, some people might say that this is a bottom-of-the-table clash, but I think Everton will be just fine this season. Wolves, again, have had a bit of an iffy start. Obviously lost 4-0 at home to Manchester City. I thought they were okay at points in that game, but I don't think they're going to survive or thrive based on games against Manchester City. It's going to be these types of games where you're going to judge them at the end of the season. Bournemouth, again, they go 1-0 down very early on and then go down to 10 men just at the start of the second half. So who knows what would have happened if they had 11 men on the pitch. It's quite hard to read Wolves at the moment. I do think their squad looks short. I do think they need some more additions. They definitely need to keep hold of Jurgen Strand-Larsen, who is rumoured to might be out for this game. I don't know whether that's because of potential transfer, but the Vitor Pereira has come out and said it could be a groin issue. So yeah, I'm not really sure how to read this one. Everton got a great win last time out. Jack Grealish pulling the strings at Hill Dickinson Stadium. I always think that game was going to be a bit of an outlier because it was their first ever home game in that stadium. So I think it was always going to be a buzzing atmosphere and difficult for anyone to go to. Tough one. I'm going to go for Wolves 1, Everton 0. I just feel that Everton were really poor in their last away game. I think Wolves will get over the line in this one. They had a confidence boosting win against West Ham in the League Cup earlier in the week. So I'm going to go Wolves 1, Everton 0. Now, the Saturday night kickoff could be a cracker. Leeds versus Newcastle, 2 passionate fan bases and 2 very physical teams. The game we saw between Newcastle and Liverpool on Monday was very, very physical, very, very intense. That could come back to bite them here because on the back of that game, Joelinton's injured, Ali's injured, Gordon's obviously suspended. They still don't have Isak through the door. Tomado won't be available for this game yet. I think Shah came out that game with concussion as well. So they're going to be a very, very depleted side, but we know Newcastle are very dangerous. They've got a great manager in Eddie Howe. So they will still make this competitive. Leeds had a fantastic result in their first game against Everton at home. I thought they were really, really good, very intense on and off the ball. And I know it's going to be a hostile atmosphere, and I think they'll make it a fortress at Ellen Road this season, potentially. And I know they got beaten last time out against Arsenal. I thought they were pretty good for half an hour. But again, a bit like Wolves against City, I don't think their season's going to be defined against Arsenal away. That's not going to be a game where they were expecting to pick anything up. I think this will be a game where they'll target and think, okay, Newcastle are a better team than us, a much better team. Last week against Tottenham, they put in a pretty subpar performance. Tottenham were well-worthy winners, and City looked a bit toothless and a bit out of ideas pretty early on in that game. I think this could be a bit of a tricky game for Man City, a bit of a banana skin. They'd be expected to win, but Brighton on their day can beat anyone. My team, Chelsea, suffered that last season to the Amex and lost 2-1 and 3-0 within consecutive weeks. And I think it could be a bit of a dodgy game for Man City. Brighton will play football. They'll go at City. I still think City defensively don't look quite right. So I think this could be maybe not a win for Brighton, but a potential surprise and a potential slip up for City in this game. So I'm going to go for Brighton Hove Albion 2, Manchester City 2. In the other 2 o'clock game on Sunday, it's Nottingham Forest against West Ham. Now, West Ham, as I discussed earlier in the week review on Monday, they're a complete mess at the moment. Now, it looks like they've got a couple of signings over the line, in Mateus Fernandes and a chap that they've bought from Monaco, but I doubt they'll be ready to play in this game. Graham Potter's under immense pressure at this moment in time. The board are under immense pressure at this moment in time. Jarrod Bowen was obviously seen arguing with fans after they lost to Wolves in the League Cup earlier in the week. So, yeah, things are looking very, very bleak for West Ham at this moment in time. I think a lot of people are now maybe revising their relegation predictions and saying they may go down. Now, I think perhaps if they change their manager, if they get these 2 midfield signings in and they get a striker, then I think they could be okay. But I think this will be a really tough game for them. Forest absolutely hammered them last year, 3-0. No pun intended, West Ham fans. They've obviously invested heavily in the squad in the last couple of weeks. McAtee, Amari Hutchinson, Douglas Luiz coming in amongst others. And I think they'll target this as a game that is very, very winnable. And to go into the international break on 7 points, I think would be a fantastic start for Nottingham Forest, bearing in mind how people maybe thought they would slip off this season. I still think that may happen, but they've made a pretty good start so far, and I think they will win this game very, very comfortably. So I'm going to go for Nottingham Forest 3, West Ham United 0. Now, on to the big game of the weekend, Liverpool versus Arsenal. Yeah, I mean, this is a very, very interesting game. It's rare that you get a game between the two probably main title contenders this earlier on in the season. It usually gets bumped along a little bit into, October and then maybe April or March or something like that. But it's going to be an absolute huge occasion at Anfield. Liverpool and Arsenal have both won both games and have got maximum points, but in very, very different ways. Arsenal weren't very impressive at Old Trafford a few weeks ago, but ground out a 1-0 win, looked very solid. And then last week against Leeds, they beat Leeds United 5-0. Again, a bit similar to how I mentioned Leeds. That is not really necessarily going to define Arsenal's season, but they still got the job done. They still won the game very, very comfortably. Gyökeres got on the score sheet twice. And with Arsenal's recruitment this summer, I think you can make a case that they are in a very, very good place now, perhaps now favourites for the title over Liverpool. And that is especially stark given that Liverpool's defensive issues in the first couple of games. They conceded 4 goals in those games. They've looked extremely vulnerable at the back. I mean, Van Dijk, funnily enough, has still been very, very good in those 2 games. And what Liverpool would do without him, I'm not quite sure. Konate's looked all over the place. Kirkhead has had a really difficult start to life at Anfield. And they just don't look well balanced, which is the complete antithesis of how Arne Slot set Liverpool up last season. They still look very dangerous going forward. Of course, they would be the attacking players that they have, and it does look like Alexander Isak may well get over the line now. But I think Arne Slot needs to have, in this week leading up to the Arsenal game, struck a balance between attack and defence and make that midfield a little bit more solid to protect Kirkhead and Konate, who are having a bit of a bad time of it at the moment. So in terms of this game, I mean, if you ask me if I had a gun to my head who would win and a draw wasn't possible, I would probably plump for Arsenal right now. I think they look more well balanced. I think they look more solid. I think there's momentum with them in terms of their summer signings. However, it is a big game at Anfield. Arsenal's record at Anfield isn't great. I do think Liverpool will rise to the occasion. I think Arne Slot will have come up with a plan this week to be able to counter Arsenal's threats and also limit Liverpool's weaknesses being exposed. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. And I think it could be a case where it will get to 70 minutes in and both teams will be like, let's shake hands and take this fight down the road. So I'm going to go Liverpool 1, Arsenal 1. And then the final game of the weekend is Aston Villa versus Crystal Palace, a repeat of the FA Cup semi-final back in April, where Palace absolutely hammered Villa 3-0 and could have been a lot more. Palace also missed a penalty in that game. The landscape's a little bit different now. Now Eze's gone. We don't know what's going to happen with Guehi over the weekend. And Palace obviously have had a European game this week to contend with, which they've never had to do before. Look at Glasner's record against Emery since they've been in the Premier League. Glasner has actually won that head-to-head battle, 17 goals to 4, and won every game. Now, that is mightily impressive. Glasner is a very, very good manager, as is Unai Emery. And I think this will be a really tight competitive game. I think Villa have looked a bit lacklustre in their opening 2 games, but I think Unai Emery would have got into them this week, and I think he would have tweaked things and improved things. However, I do think Palace are a very, very tough opposition and a very tough nut to crack, and I think it could be a tight game. I don't see Glasner winning, well, adding too much to that 17-4 aggregate scoreline. So I'm going to go for Aston Villa 1, Crystal Palace 1. So yeah, that's the predictions for match week 3, guys. Let me know in the comments what your predictions are for the weekend's big games. And I look forward to seeing you very soon. Take care.